of the ISK. It's a very little that one can buy now, given the actual status of the currency. But we have capital controls. They were actually imposed in November, and we have onshore-offshore rates on the ISK. And we haven't really solved the currency crisis yet. This is the Icelandic stock market that basically vanished. And it's very clear that coming from a small currency area in a financial crisis is a curse. It's very clear that the banking crisis on both sides of the ocean was solved by taking interest rate to zero and printing money. This is something that we couldn't really do. In Iceland, the interest rates were taken up to about 18%. And the Central Bank of Iceland could print ISK or our currency, but that was of no use because by printing more ISK, you were just making the currency crisis much worse. And so when it became evident that Iceland would not be supported by the big central banks, it was basically game over. So it is quite, private capital flows are always very volatile, and you lose confidence pretty quickly. And I also think that even though Iceland might be an extreme case, given how small it is and how the banking system was big, I don't really think that other small open economies that have their own currencies and oversized banking system, like for example Switzerland or the UK, they could also face problems, because the sovereign cannot really have a back support for such a large financial system as these actually countries have. So I would actually think that in the future, I would think that big banks will have to stay in big countries and with big actually currencies. So of course, we have only ourselves to blame. That's quite sure. We did not make any political or at least binding political contracts before the crisis, so we couldn't really expect any help. But I'm pretty sure that if we had been a member of the EU, or if the U.S. Army base would still had been in Iceland in 2008, probably the British would not have invoked this as a terrorist legislation against Iceland. And it's also that the Icelandic state has actually guaranteed a sum equal to about 60% of the country's output to pay off ISAVE savers. And that is being finalized now. So we will be facing for Britain and Holland for actually some time to come, I guess. But if I just briefly touch on Iceland in the foreign media, then it was basically that the country was not very known, and Iceland was practically never in the foreign media, at least not in the foreign business media, before the banking expansion began. But Iceland is a very exotic place and also remote, and usually foreign journalists, they give themselves a lot of leeway when they actually write from the country. Usually they take some extreme view on it, and I just have actually written here some 5 stages. First, we were hailed as a success story, example for others, a land of ice and fire and so on. Secondly, we were called the Viking Raiders, and with some kind of a warrior-like business instinct, I guess. And then third, when the crisis began, it was all about hot lava and Iceland melting. And actually, the foreign media, especially in the UK, had a very large role in the bank run that actually developed against the Icelandic banks with very big news headlines. And then after the financial system collapsed, especially last winter, Iceland was painted as a place hit by a nuclear bomb or actually something like that. A very black and dire place where everything was basically coming down. And fifth, this summer there has been a change as confidence has returned to other countries. We are now talked about as a nation of elf believers or just plain crooks in a way. And to basically explain away the financial crisis in Iceland, just to tell people this will never happen to us. And but the situation now in Iceland, I would say that we are the only country in Europe that has actually solved the banking crisis. I mean, all the necessary write-downs they have been taken. We have founded new banks with only Icelandic assets that actually have been buying assets from the old banks at a fair value. And these new banks will be owned by the former bondholders of the banks. We are still dealing with a currency crisis, and there are huge sums of speculative money that are actually trapped in Iceland, or shall I say lost in Iceland. But at the same time, Iceland is a small open economy. A low currency brings out growth. And the solution for us is, of course, that we have to export ourselves out of this. And that is already beginning. I would expect that we would see growth beginning next year. And as you might know, Iceland always used to be measured the happiest nation on earth. But I can tell you that the happiness is actually still there in a way. But for the Icelandic public, losing the good name of the country has been far worse than actually losing money. So I actually hope that we will be drawn closer to Europe in the future, and also that we will get a more, shall we say, a balanced coverage in the foreign media, also in the actual future to come. So so it actually will actually take some time. You can actually compare Ireland and Iceland, that are very similar in a way. Both countries were very pro-market. Both countries received a lot of foreign financial flows. Ireland also had an oversized financial system, and they were also under a run in September last year. But the Irish, they have the euro. They also have the European Union, and that's why they could stay on course, and we went down. But at the same time, it's not quite sure that the Irish will fare much better than Iceland in the years to come. They have now an overvalued currency, the euro, that has actually gained value. So their exports are actually facing problems. And the Irish state has also guaranteed a huge sums of money, all the banking assets. So, so in a way, I don't really think that Iceland might be as worse off as actually quite many think. And that actually is my opinion, and I will be happy to answer any actual questions afterwards.
Ásgeir, if we may, what I'd like to do, we have 2 keynote speakers.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is, thank you very much for that, get our next speaker on board, and then we'll put them both in the hot seats, and we can take it from there then, so if that's everyone's agreeable. So Ásgeir, thank you so much for that. Very, very informative.